I remember making art very early on, even as a really young child. My mom tells me that I was always drawing things and cutting things and pasting things, but mostly drawing, and I would draw people, but I would draw their clothing first. Like I would draw the way that the scarf draped around the neck and things like that. So I think really early on I knew I wanted to record things, and I also was really attracted to fabric and to the material part of it as much as to the person. Well, my background, when I started in art school and even in high school, I really loved to draw. I mean, that was always my first love, and I always come back to drawing when I'm in between projects. A lot of times those drawings don't get shared, but that is really how I work through thoughts. But I ended up, I think, going into the fiber field, which is where both of my degrees have an emphasis on fiber and a minor in drawing. There was something about the physicality of the process that I found so rewarding, and also it felt very much at home. And yes, it extended the time that it takes to make a piece, because sometimes you put a mark on a piece of paper and the first mark is the best mark. You know, like that first sentence you write can be the best sentence. And other times you need to erase and erase and erase. Well, with fiber art, whether it's weaving or screen printing, I did a lot of yardages in undergraduate school. All of that is very time consuming, and it was a new understanding of materials that I'd always been familiar with.
She uses materials that are available to her, and then she creates this like a really nice dialogue with the space that she's installing and pieces that she, you know, like the little parts that she's putting together. And I think, you know, most of us artists, art can be really wasteful. And I think she is one of those people that is not very wasteful when it comes to art. She really tries to use whatever is around her, and I very much admire that about her. Like shovels and denim and books. You know, books and magazines, and you know, like she reuses things, and they never, her pieces, even though things have been reused here and there, just looking through her portfolio, they never seem like, oh my God, she clearly used that. She really transforms them, and because of the context of the space, they look like a brand new piece, and it's kind of nice.
You know, we all know about clothes. We all know about fabric that we touch, or blankets that we played with as children that have a certain light that passes through them. And my mom, though she had been a school teacher for many years, her job while we were growing up in Ohio, she also for many years she sewed curtains for a custom drapery designer, and always had lots of fabric around. So I think I was just drawn to these familiar fabrics, but I wanted to maybe look at them in a more anthropological way.
The labor-intensive process, I admire that about her work. Yeah, in terms of physicality and that idea of things being up and then coming down and never being up in the same, so like the site-specific part of it, that ephemeral part of it, her and I share that.
There are definitely a lot of people who have been part of my journey to get where I am today. If I think back, you know, my parents have always been incredibly supportive of me. The way that I work is much more conceptual than I think they ever thought I would work, but they have nonetheless supported me, and to this day, you know, my mom is always really very supportive. But even back in high school, I had some wonderful art teachers. There was Dante Cornacchione, and particularly Phyllis Fannin. She was my high school art teacher, and she taught the advanced, or I don't know if it was AP, art for us, and we did portfolio prep on the weekends. We went to the Cleveland Institute of Art, and she was just terrific. She was a wonderful role model. She was a working artist, which I think a lot of, not all, but many high school art teachers end up not making their own work, because being a teacher takes a lot of time, especially if you're in the classroom every day with a broad range of kids. She was just a terrific influence, and I think while I was a junior in high school, she got her master's degree, and I thought, wow, she has a master's degree, and she was so cool and made beautiful work. And she still lives in, you know, I think she still lives in my hometown, Lakewood, Ohio. And in art school, in my undergraduate, particularly Annette Cowenberg, she was my senior year advisor and later even hired me when she moved on to Maryland Institute College of Art. Those two are really instrumental in just being wonderful role models that you can be an artist and a parent and a wife and have a full life and make really wonderful work that is not derivative, that is innovative, and that really engages you as an artist and as a person, engages the community. Well, there are a lot. I mean, there's a lot of really great art out today, and I think our access to it via, social media and everything has made it all really accessible. I'm going to start with the one that's closest to me, like in some ways. I went to school with an incredible artist. Her name is Sonia Clark. She has just continually been true to her vision. Her work is all about being an African-American woman. It's always been very political and social and exquisitely made. I really love the work of Tara Donovan. She also takes kind of ordinary objects and she transforms them into the most miraculous, cloud-like things. At the Milwaukee Art Museum, they have one of her pieces that's made of drinking straws, and it looks like there's something like flowing out of the walls. It's like soft, but they're all drinking straws at different lengths that have been attached to the wall. And I like that idea of, the compression and just that abundance of material. She's also done things with styrofoam cups, which are the most heinous thing ever made, and she makes them into these clouds and they fill a space so beautifully. I have a lot of respect for people that work that way. I feel like all of these artists, I think, also have something inside them that is, I don't know if this is gonna sound corny, in some way, it's beyond being a principle or maybe it's philosophical or spiritual, and I think it comes through their work. Like there's this essence of their personality in every one of their pieces, even though the pieces are very, very different from each other. So I think the artists that influence me, it's their friendship and on some levels, the ones that I know, but it's also that they make this work that is so always moving forward, never just repeating what they've done that they know has a following or might sell or might get into a show, but always, pushing the boundaries a little bit, even if it's not where it should be yet. Like they're always going for that next, that golden ring up there. Well, that piece is a collaborative piece with the artist Diana Gabriel. She and I met, it's several years ago now. We had met at Waubonsee Community College when I was a visiting artist and she was teaching there, and Annie Holm had introduced us. So our paths kept crossing, and at some point she messaged me on Facebook and said, maybe we should do something together. And I said, yeah, we should. Neither of us had anything in mind. And then I was approached by Jim Kirchhoff when he was still at Water Street Studios, and they wanted to inaugurate a residency program to bring more artists into Water Street. And they asked if I would consider helping them define that program, but also being one of the first artists. But in the back of my mind, I was trying to do things that would help me grow as an artist, and I thought immediately of Diana and asked if she would consider doing a collaborative residency with me at Water Street for a few months.
So we started, we did the residency here. We were the first round of people to go through the residency, and then we met up. We talked about about like what we wanted to do. We got all the pieces which were donated, the bobbins which were donated, and all through her because she's got tons of contacts and stuff.
Mm-hmm. When we first started, we knew we wanted to work together. We didn't have any idea what we would do. Diana uses a lot of string and fibrous materials, but in a very different way than I do. And just fortuitously, a friend of mine that I'd gone to graduate school with, her name is Paula Stebbins-Becker. She's a textile designer and an artist, and she had worked for a mill. She said they don't know what to do with these bobbins. They have thousands of bobbins. They offered them to a professor at RISD who didn't want them. Can you make any use of them? That was the start. We had these bobbins, and this textile mill is closing, so Diana and I started both doing research separately and together, specifically about that mill, and then we started looking at the significance of the textile industry in this country and what has happened to it, the fact that it was so big here, and now it's really left the country in many senses. Particularly the bobbins were things that were used by usually young boys called doffers. So at first we were really thinking about these boys working in these textile mills. So that was not particular to this mill, but it opened up this whole field, this kind of realm of research that we were not really expecting.
So having had a chance to work with her and sitting down, her and I did an interview as well about like what it was like to make ephemeral work and site-specific and repetitive, laborious work. And one of the things that's very different about hers, about her process that's like from mine, was how much research and prep work that she does. I think we all prep for things like that very differently, and she's like a busy bee. She will like read and look at magazines and then do a lot of sketches and then like kind of do little maquettes and then try again and then do, you know, she's just busy constantly. So she's like her work ethic is kind of impressive.
Yeah.
And I definitely admire that. I wish I was more like that, and I hope that I can get there one day. I'm just not that organized.
So that's what it started from, the material, really. So then Diana and I decided to spend the time really looking at the bobbins, and there is such a broad range of different fibers and colors. So we categorized the bobbins by color first, and then after we categorized them by colors, broke them down by colors, we had this rainbow of bobbins all across the floor. Then we looked at each bobbin, which were also beautiful. The wood bobbins are they're beautiful things. So we experimented with a couple of different things that we were going to build. We knew we wanted to make a structure that you could go inside. We talked about stringing, so we had to categorize them first by color, and then by color and whether they had a hole all the way through. And then it was cools and warms and all kinds of things, and boxed and unboxed. So I don't know if that really answered the question. It was an ongoing conversation with Diana.
Everything just clicked.
Yeah.
We were like, we had to take like a year off, not really thinking heavily about it, and then get together, and then everything sort of clicked together really, really well. So it was a perfect baby between her and I, like the perfect art piece.
It was really a fascinating way to work with someone else, and to have this kind of gift of materials that have such history to them. They have such they have a patina of use, first of all, but they also have real social significance. They were really part of, excuse the pun, the fabric of this country, what made this country, I mean, really, if you think about this country, the industrialization really made this country strong financially and politically and economically in all kinds of ways. So I loved that connection. Well, the Fox Valley is kind of a nebulous geographic region, if you ask me. Many of the people that live here work in Chicago, right? So it's really a bedroom community with a few exceptions. Batavia has a downtown that is pretty interesting and getting more so. Geneva has a nice downtown, St. Charles. They're very similar in that sense, these three cities. So that's what I really think of as the Fox Valley, but recently I've been thinking of it as extending much farther into Aurora. And Aurora has a pretty wonderful, more urban art scene than we do here. The art scene in Chicago will always be different from the art scene here. And you can call it the art scene, the art world, or the art activities, just because of the density of population, the types of buildings, the diversity. I think we have a pretty good art scene here, a pretty good community, and it is about the community. There aren't nearly enough spaces out here that are not commercial. I think it will only get stronger by developing stronger ties to Chicago or to other cities. If you think about Southern Illinois, where some of the universities are, there are some really great galleries and some really interesting conversations going on down there. There's no reason why Water Street Studios and Batavia and the Fox Valley can't all be a stepping stone, or like an oasis between those places that are even farther out in Chicago. Like why can't we be that kind of like a way station on the way? I think it's a pretty great place to be. And considering that a lot of people that live out here, including myself, I have a family and I want to live in a place that's safe for them but still have access to art and artists. So I have my community here. I have other friends that are artists that are in the city. I expose my kids to all of these things. They go to museums, we go to openings. They've come with me to pick up supplies in some places they probably should not have been. But that's a pretty great place to be. We have the train line here that keeps us connected. I'd like to see more that is not mainstream, but that's me. I'm one person in this community. There are a lot of artists that that have more saleable work than I do. My work is more conceptual. I met this crazy artist, Joe Gagnapan, and I was subletting a studio from him in the creepiest building you've ever been in, and there was always water on the floor and critters and people walking through, and he said, we're starting this project in Batavia, and that was Water Street Studios, and I've been here ever since. Well, Water Street Studios has been a pretty terrific place for me, both as an artist and as a person. And in Naperville, I couldn't find artists. Every artist I met was not the same kind of artist that I was looking for. I was not finding that kindred spirit. So I heard about the Water Street Studios, and I was apprehensive because in Jersey City, the building that we'd been working on for 2 years to convert into artist live workspace after 9/11, it was pulled out from under us and is now luxury lofts, right? And you know, there are no artists living there. So I was really apprehensive, and Austin remembers somebody came up to him that first day and said, how do we know you're not going to just take it out from under us when we build it up and make it great here in Batavia? And he said he would never do that, and he never has. And I remember walking through that space and just thinking, yes, you know, finally, these are the people. The community of artists that Water Street has built that go way beyond the building is what it has really given to me and to the Fox Valley, I think. It's, you know, it started out as a building and everybody wanted to be in the building and have a studio there. And I think that what we're finding is that as artists grow or their needs change, maybe they don't need to be there in the hub, but they're still part of that community. It is about, it's not about the building so much as it is about the conversation that we're all having with each other and with the artwork that they're showing, you know, continually strong shows in the gallery. And I hope, you know, I worked there for a year. I have to say, I think the last year's been great because I helped put all those shows on. But I do think that it has, every year the shows have gotten better and better. And not just because I was there, but I assume that the next year the level and the quality of the shows and the reputation will continue to grow. I expect that at Water Street. I expect nothing less.
I think when you work, when you meet someone as like you're having a show with another artist, you meet each other and you see each other's work and maybe you have a casual conversation. But collaborating with someone, you kind of get to a different level of like a personal, more of a personal way. You get to know them as an artist, as a human, and almost like a professional. And to her, I really do see her as kind of a very mentoring person. She's always like, hey, you know, you should be looking. She's always well informed.
Up until this past year, the place was completely volunteer run, which is kind of amazing that an organization can have that kind of a presence as a volunteer run organization. And people in Chicago know about us. You know, we're getting a little bit past Chicago. We're going farther and farther every year with the reputation of the organization. And that's a big thing. You know, the art world is pretty fickle. So if they stay true to their mission, if Water Street can stay true to its mission of providing outstanding gallery, arts, education, and community, you know, not just in the Fox Valley, but beyond, I think that place will be around for a long time. So I'm going for a week to do the exploratory work to see if we can come to an agreement on what I will do. I think it's, you know, pretty likely that I will be doing that. It's very likely, but, you know, the T's aren't dotted, the I's. I mean, the I's aren't dotted, the T's aren't crossed yet. That's a pretty, again, it comes down to the community that you're in and the relationships that you have. I am of Latvian descent. I am Latvian. I speak Latvian. My children speak Latvian. My husband speaks Latvian. I spent a year in Latvia on a Fulbright right after graduate school. Thank you, Cranbrook Academy of Art, for helping me get there. It's been a part of my identity for a long time, and I've spent a lot of time looking at what it means to be a Latvian American. It's been a wonderful cultural exchange going on, but mostly with artists from Latvia coming to the States. So about a year ago, Liga Eops, who is an art historian, and she and I have known each other for a long time. She's curated some shows that I've been in. She was talking to the person who is the head of the American Latvian Artists Association, Linda Treja, who lives out in Texas. And they were talking about doing something where they take an artist from here and have that artist go the other way, go to Latvia. And they wanted it to be an artist who wouldn't, you know, show up and do something about being Latvian with the Latvian flag, you know what I mean, but do something that was really about my work or that person's work that was serious work and would be interesting to the people there as a view into the Latvian American psyche or where those places meet. So they approached me, Linda and Liga approached me. The building, the new National Library in Latvia had just opened to the public. And it is a wonderful building designed by Gunnars Birkerts, who is, or Gunnar Burkett, is depending on how you're pronouncing it in the Latvian or American way. He is an architect, he's a world-renowned architect. He is Latvian American, or Latvian really, he was born in Latvia. And he also went to Cranbrook. He's a Cranbrook grad, just like I am, though quite a bit my predecessor. And the building is designed by him. They're calling it Gaismaspils, which is the Castle of Light, which is from a song that was sung when Latvia was still occupied, kind of as, you know, a song of hope. It's a very poignant song, kind of melancholy. The building is mostly glass. It kind of looks like a big castle, not a castle, like a mountain. The Latvian people have a love affair with books, as do I. But when they were moving to this new library from the old library, the People's Collection was passed hand to hand across the country in a human chain in January. I mean, it was cold out. Someone put one of those GoPro cameras on a book so you could see it, you know, see that book make its progress to the National Library. And I have not been there yet. I'm going September, very soon. And I will be in that building for the first time. I had hoped to go almost 6 months ago, but then the European Council had occupied the building for a period for their presidency. So within the building, when you walk in, I understand there is a people's library where there are shelves that go floor to ceiling in this several stories high, glass-fronted building that are all those books that were passed hand to hand. So, I mean, they are romantic, they are poetic, they believe in the big gesture. They kind of get it as far as that dramatic visual that goes along with that big emotion that you're having. And I feel like that is my Latvian aesthetic popping through. It's like that big moment. Language is so important to Latvians, the preservation of language or the correct use of language. Dodi viņi otram doti, ne no otra mīļi lūgti, which translates to give God that I'm giving to others, not asking from them. The whole idea of always giving back rather than receiving. So that opportunity came up because I'm part of that community. Just like many opportunities have come to me because I'm part of this community here in Batavia. That opportunity came up because I'm part of that community and I contribute to that community in other ways.
She's always reading and looking up, you know, artist opportunities, and you know, she's always so willing to like be like, hey, I read something that might be really good for you. We should look at this. You should look at that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when we, as artists, we help each other that way, mm-hmm. it forms a tighter bond in our community. And I just feel like we need more people like her in the art community.
Since then, Liga Aops went and was at a conference for the American Latvian Association and simply approached the director of the library and said, took 2 of my books, which I have over here, I can show you my booklets from my other installation pieces, said, don't you want this work in your library? And he said, well, I'd have to share it with the director of exhibitions. He took it back to the director of exhibitions, and a day later, Liga had an email from her saying, yes, you know, we want her to come and do something. But their criteria were that it had to happen all in Latvia, not me bringing work to Latvia, but that I work there, and that it be site-specific, and that the materials come from there. So that's what we have to work out. They have a gallery space in the building. I don't know if it will be in the gallery space or in another part. I would really kind of love it to be somewhere where they don't expect to see art. I've done pieces using books in the past, and that was a huge, the piece that started out at Water Street is trying to remember books loaned to friends, and then ended up being a full installation in St. Joseph at the Krasl Art Center. But those 2 women were instrumental. Lelda Kalmīt, who's the person who runs the gallery at Bridgeport Art Center, she also is the director of the World Latvian Federation, or I'm sorry, I don't know these names in English. I'm saying the wrong organization, federation. But there's a show in another part of Latvia that's up right now, and that's also working in my favor. In addition, I have a piece in the Art and Embassies program in the American residence in Riga. One of my pieces is there as well. So I have all these different things that are bringing me back to Riga or back to Latvia continuously, in addition to family and friends and a love of the place.